Blue Guards forded the Boyne River at this very spot. With that act, Willem van Oranje placed both hands firmly on the crown he so wanted to wrench from his uncle's head. Having gamed the Battle of the Boyne many times on tables small and large, this video aims to offer insights into recreating a key moment in history on the tabletop. Both armies were over 20,000 strong, but only a portion saw action. A numerically superior force attempts a contested river crossing. Horse, foot and artillery all played a part. The outcome was a tactical withdrawal which descended into a panicky retreat to Dublin and then further west. Using Beneath the Lily banners, let's explore some of the possibilities of refighting the Battle of the Boyne. King James had detached around 3,000 infantry, 1,200 horse and 1,000 dragoons, 20% of his force, to cover the lowest fords on the tidal Boyne River, within sight of the walls of Drogheda. The battle saw the smaller Jacobite force attempt to repel the Williamite crossing. This hazardous enterprise was led by the Dutch prince's most seasoned regiment, the Garde de Holt, or Blue Guards. The Jacobite infantry detailed to defend the crossing is often misrepresented as an untrained rabble. This is both misleading and unfair. 4 regiments, the King's, the Marquis de Boisselot's, the Earl of Clanrickards and the Earl of Antrim's were likely to be amongst the best infantry in the whole army. The King's regiment was the Irish Foot Guards. Antrim and Clanrickard were 2 of the most powerful nobles in Ireland, and de Boisselot was an officer of the Garde Française, commanding a Cork regiment likely to be worthy of his status. It is no coincidence that Willem chose Dutch, Danish and Huguenot regiments to lead the attack. He remained suspicious of his British regiments, with the possible exception of the Derry and Enniskillen formations, which crossed behind the European infantry. After gaining a toehold on the south bank, Willem's men had to weather repeated cavalry attacks led by the Duke of Berwick. This dynamic young officer was the King's illegitimate son and went on to be a celebrated marshal in the French army. Weight of numbers forced the Jacobites back, and the retreat was covered by a gallant rearguard action on the crest of Donore Hill, undertaken by dragoons. Marshal Schomberg was killed in the battle, and Willem himself was unhorsed and almost fell victim to an unfortunate blue-on-blue incident. Casualties by the standards of the period were relatively light. Contrary to folklore, the Boyne was a nip-and-tuck affair. Wargaming the Boyne can be approached from either a historical or what-if perspective, and on a large or small scale. However you decide to recreate it, it's important that you have some realistic victory conditions for both sides. Under the circumstances, a total Jacobite victory is highly unlikely. This could be pretty discouraging if you're playing the Jacobites, so setting realistic objectives for the Jacobites is important. I suggest 6 key considerations when you're creating your Boyne scenarios. The first is the quality classification of the troops of both sides. The second is how you deploy and use the Jacobite cavalry. The third is the use of pikes by the Williamite infantry. The fourth is a limit on artillery ranges. The fifth is how the river itself is crossed. And finally, it's significant how the defence works at Old Bridge are classified and used. Right, let's move to the tabletop action. Willem's infantry was at its most vulnerable emerging from the Boyne. Wet, disorganised, possibly with damp powder, battalions needed time and space to form up. This was the ideal moment for a cavalry strike. Let's see how King Christian's Foot Guards fare against the regiment of that pantomime villain, Piers Butler Lord Galmoy. At the limit of their charge reach, Galmoy's regiment easily passed the check. The Danes are steady, up for the challenge and delivering an effective range volley. Someone's blundered. The Jacobite cavalry fall short. The Danish guards get a free volley. They score 2 hits. This causes a morale check. The Jacobite cavalry are disordered and fail to contact. Let's run that again with the Deadly Blade cavalry making full contact with the infantry. Although drilled, Galmoy's troopers use D10s in the charge, hitting on 5s and 6s. The infantry are now vulnerable, using D8s and hitting on 6s. An emphatic win for Galmoy's with 4 hits to 0. The guards must take a morale check. The result of 3 means the infantry break off and retire disordered, however Galmoy's troopers do not follow up. In the context of the scenario, the guards may have been pushed back into the river. Let's move on to the all or nothing charge. This option allows a player to throw a multi-squadron regiment into the attack all at one time. It simulates a large cavalry unit or brigade attacking in waves. The risk and reward balance requires careful consideration. If successful, Lord Abercorn's regiment will use 8 D10s hitting on 5s and 6s in the first round of combat, potentially decisive. Not only are the Doughty Foon regiment ready for the charge, they will deliver their volley at devastating fire range. With 6 D10 for Foon's first volley, it should have been a foregone conclusion, but Danish fire was extremely poor, allowing the Jacobites to make contact. It was going to be potentially mayhem. Regiment Foon should have been swept away by this irresistible attack. 7 casualties versus none. Many of Willem's regiments did not carry pikes at the Boyne, and the reason for this is a point of continuing debate. This regiment of Danish tabletop heroes scored an incredible morale result in order to stay in the fight. The cavalry's hitting power was greatly reduced in the second round of the melee. In fact, they lost it. Lord Abercorn's men also dug deep and finally managed to overcome the Danish infantry. Beaten infantry cannot escape victorious cavalry, and Regiment Foon was ridden down and their colours taken. All close combat in Beneath the Lily Banners is resolved in a single turn. Even if the enemy scores no hits, all units take at least a single casualty due to attrition. You can begin to refight the Battle of the Boyne on a 2 feet by 2 feet table. The League of Augsburg's 4-play scenario system contains a Battle of the Boyne pack. This has 3 sequential scenarios: the Guards crossing at Old Bridge, the Jacobite cavalry counterattacks, and the rearguard action on Donore Hill. All of these games require 4 units per side and can be played in about an hour. If you fancy something larger, A Taste of Victory has the full battle at Old Bridge. Finding collateral for this period isn't easy. The League of Augsburg has comprehensive guides to both armies at the battle. You can find out lots more about the Battle of the Boyne and the armies that fought there at www.leagueofaugsburg.com and at www.leagueofaugsburgblogspot.com. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you've enjoyed it, please like it and subscribe to this YouTube channel.